Welcome in, everybody. This is Pucks from the Pine Tree Pod, Season 1, Episode 8. Happy Wednesday evening, everybody. Uh, been one of those weeks where it's only Wednesday. It feels like it should be Friday already. Been a long one, but that's okay. That's okay. We're getting through. We're working through it, everybody. And hope you guys are working through it well as well. Tonight, we're going to explore a little bit of the crazy world of the NHL coaching carousel, which is awful. It's just awful. But we're going to talk a little bit about that. Before we do, we have had now game two in the Stanley Cup final. Florida victors 4-1 over Edmonton a couple nights ago. Teams making their way back to Edmonton for game three tomorrow night. I don't have a ton to say about this game other than Florida clearly is the dominant team. Felt like they were the favorites coming in. They've been the favorites through the two games, despite how well Edmonton played in game one. Florida really kind of took them to task in game two. A couple of numbers I'm going to throw out there at you guys. And something we talked about when I did my review of Edmonton is about the power play and how crucial it was going to be for the Oilers to really take advantage of that power play. So far, they're 0 for 7 through two games. Not going to get it done if you're Edmonton. Face-off circle has also been a real little bit of a struggle for Edmonton, Florida. In game one was 59.6% versus 40.4. And in game two, it was about 54.4 for Florida and a 45.6 for Edmonton. So a little bit better in game two, but that adds up over the course of time. I didn't like the composure of Edmonton throughout that game. A lot of conversation over the past 2 days about Dreisaitl's hit. Yeah, I was surprised. I was actually quite surprised that the league didn't. First of all, that the refs didn't make it a 5 minute game misconduct, and then after that didn't happen, I kind of thought the league might say, "Listen, Leon, you got to go sit for a game." Uh, didn't happen. It's whatever. I think it's a miss, but you have to just move on. But did not like Edmonton's composure. They were getting frustrated, no question. They've scored one goal through two games. They're frustrated. Um, that can all be cured in game three if they can just get a win. They got to score more than one goal. Secrets out. Got to score more than one goal to win the series. Um, should be fun. We'll see what happens in game three. Again, my pick was Florida in seven. If I had it to do over again, I'd probably say Florida in five or six. I do think Edmonton still has a game in them where they're going to just figure out Bobrovsky, beat him high, beat him glove side, like everybody seems to know. That's how you beat Bob. It's just getting those shots to go, and they haven't done enough of that so far in this series. So tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Eastern time in Edmonton, uh, should be should be entertaining. We'll see. Before we jump into the board, a little bit of Boston Bruins news today. They did have some coaching news. Jay Leach, former assistant coach of the Seattle Kraken, is joining the Boston Bruins on their bench for this coming season. Uh, if that name rings a bell, it's because he did coach in Providence for the Providence Bruins for about 5 seasons. Uh, had a record of 136, 77, and 26, and was a candidate when Monty was being interviewed and hired. He was one of the few guys that did get interviewed uh, just based on his time there in Providence and was very successful, good development type of guy. Didn't get that job, went off to Seattle and is now back with the Bruins. I think it's a good hire. I think it's a younger guy who I think the Bees really saw a lot of value and was kind of sad to see him leave the organization, but great to get him back. Uh, with these moves, Joe Sacco, uh, been assistant for a long time here in Boston, kind of gets that little bit of elevation to associate coach. Joe's a guy that's coached in this league, the head coach in Colorado, has had interviews in the past as well for head coaching positions. I think eventually he becomes the head coach too, but he gets that promotion. And John McClain, who was an assistant, does move to a player development role, staying within the organization. So, all in all, I think it's a great fit, great moves overall for everybody. Getting Leach back into the organization, I think, just makes that bench a little bit stronger. So, curious your thoughts. If any Bruins fans out there have any thoughts, any Providence fans who remember Jay Leach over the years, feel free to leave those comments down below. We're gonna jump into the board. Wearing Toronto tonight on my head. Uh, as a Bruins fan, it doesn't feel great, but it's what it is, right? We're gonna do it. But I wear the Maple Leafs hat tonight because I do think of all the coaches and all the openings on this board. I think Toronto hit the biggest home run of the offseason when it comes to coaching changes. Craig Berube, I think, is the perfect fit for exactly what Toronto needs in their organization. Uh, Throughout his career, I had the percentages up there: is 518 winning percentage, 281 wins, 190 losses, 72 overtime losses. We all remember, sadly, he is a Stanley Cup winner, winning in Game 7 2019 against the Boston Bruins. But he has a level of accountability. He was, as a player, very kind of gritty, tough, and I feel like he has continued to carry that on as a coach, more refined, I think, as he's gone on. Uh, he has a thick skin too. For those U.S. fans that don't quite get it, but you go to Toronto, it's all hockey. Toronto Maple Leafs, they're kind of like the Dallas Cowboys in Dallas. They're like the New York Yankees in New York City. They are, they're everything, and that's the media is just so focused in on that. It's a pressure cooker. And I think Craig Berube is just the perfect person to handle that media up there, to handle all the pressures that come with that job. Um, if I was a Toronto fan, I'm just hoping that the organization builds this team around Berube's style and gives Berube a little bit of a voice because, again, there's changes that are needed on that roster from a defensive perspective, from kind of a toughness and grit perspective. Um, Great hire. I think he's going to be really successful. Yeah, they got to change the room a little bit, and we'll see how that goes. But I think that home run for Toronto should be a lot of fun to see him on that bench. Uh, Kind of parlaying with Toronto, we now go to New Jersey with Sheldon Keefe, someone that Toronto fans will know all too well. Former head coach there in Toronto for the past 5 seasons. Tons of regular season success, well documented. 212 wins, 97 losses, 40 overtime losses. Uh, we see this a lot in the league today where coaches get those second, third, sometimes fourth gigs, and the reason that happens is you do see some fairly good success when coaches have that opportunity to come back and kind of remake themselves in attempt number two or attempt number three. Look at Bruce Cassidy, kind of a failure in Washington, worked his way up back through Providence, was wildly successful here in Boston, and of course now a Cup winner out in Vegas. So those trajectories do happen. I think Charlie Keefe's a good coach. I do. I know that the playoff success wasn't there over the last few years. Um, Kind of felt like he was. I don't know. There were limitations. I think to just to him being able to maybe express himself as much as he wanted to, or be as hard on players as maybe he wanted to. Maybe that's on him. Maybe he needs to learn. Hey, I shouldn't worry about the media. I shouldn't worry about all the other kind of outside pressures. I do think that plays in Toronto a little bit. Um, it's part of why I think Berube will be so good in Toronto. I also think it's that experience is really going to help Sheldon as he comes into New Jersey. The real issue, the real I think positive for him is he's coached young superstars, Austin Matthews and Mitch Marner and Nylander. He's dealt with this world before, and you've got a all world player in Jack Hughes down there in New Jersey. I think that he's going to be very well prepared know how to handle Jack and know how to coach up the rest of that organization, those players in that organization. And yeah, I mean, it's not like the New Jersey media market is a cupcake, but compared to Toronto, I think Sheldon is fully prepared to deal with anything that's going to get thrown at him there in New Jersey. So, yeah, overall, good hire. I wasn't sure where Sheldon would land. He landed pretty quick. I think it tells you he was definitely well sought after. So good on him. Going to move down the board to Buffalo, Buffalo. Lindy Ruff coached in Buffalo from 1997 to 2013. Veteran coach, uh, 864 wins, 679 losses, 78 ties, and 153 overtime losses, as well as back when we had ties. He's coached that long. Certainly a bit of a homecoming for Lindy after all those years in Buffalo. Listen, this team is desperate. They're on the cusp. They've got um, just a slew of young, talented players. You know, Tage Thompson. You think about the defensive group that they have. They've got a lot of talent there. You know, it's not so dissimilar to when Lindy took over New Jersey with a young team with a lot of talent that just couldn't quite figure it out. And he got him into the playoffs a couple of years ago. I think Buffalo is hoping that Lindy and his new voice coming back into this organization can help them kind of get over the top. Yeah, good hire, I think overall. Obviously, a very well known name, and most likely, given this where he's at in his career, this is probably his last run as a head coach. But um, I think we'll see how it goes. I don't think it's a bad hire at all. Moving on to Ottawa. Ottawa. Travis Green had been an assistant in New Jersey under Lindy Ruff last season. Uh, was the interim coach after Lindy was fired last year. Oddly enough, he took the Ottawa job before New Jersey had actually made a decision on Charlie Keefe. Obviously, I think Green probably knew he wasn't being fully considered for that role. Uh, did coach in Vancouver a few years back. That's a record of 141, 159, and 35 for that 421 winning percentage that's on the board. You know, guys, my take with Green is kind of a mm, higher. Um, Listen, he knows his stuff. He knows hockey. Uh, Not a bad coach. I think he's a pretty good communicator from everything that you read about him. And you know, his time in Vancouver only had the one playoff appearance. I just think that given this organization where they are today, new ownership, new arena coming, it just felt like maybe they could have made a bigger splash. And I don't know if this hire really gets too many Ottawa fans super duper excited, but give him an opportunity. This is his second chance to be a head coach, and hopefully it's successful for him. I mean, he's not a like I said, he's not a bad coach. I think there were more splashier names out there that Ottawa could have gone after and grabbed. Winnipeg. Moving on to Winnipeg. Of course, Rick Bonus, longtime NHL head coach. He coached here in Boston years ago. Retiring this year in Winnipeg. He had his own health issues, and his wife had some health issues as well throughout the season. He retires, and Scott Arnell, who had been his assistant, takes the role. Uh, Pretty obvious fit here, pretty obvious hire. I think everybody knew that Scott had the lead in on this job. Arnell had been a head coach in Columbus back in 2010 to 2012. Not a great record, 45, 60, and 18 for 366. Save percentage, winning percentage. This was a shoe and hire. He did fine filling in for Bonus throughout the season. Obviously, the team was fairly successful throughout the year. He has the relationships, and this is again his second crack at being a head coach. So I think it's a good fit for him. Good fit for Winnipeg. Um, little local note about Scott. He did play for the old Maine Mariners back in the day. Back in 91, 92, he actually played 14 games out here in Portland. So just throw that little nugget in for everybody. Uh, Moving on to the LA Kings. Uh, this one gets me a little bit fired up. I actually didn't even really take too many notes on this one because it just Todd McClellan getting fired this year was the one that really kind of, excuse my language, just kind of pissed me off this year. Todd McClellan's a one heck of a coach. And yeah, the team was struggling a little bit. He had been there for a little while. But this is part of the problem with the NHL is that these organizations have such short trigger fingers that they are just uh, no patience whatsoever. And we'll get into that a little bit later on. But uh, the team, yes, they did start to struggle a little bit. I think the word was just they want a new voice. Okay, fine. But you know, this one pissed me off a little bit like when Cassidy was fired here in Boston. Like, it just didn't seem like that was the problem. Like, McClellan wasn't the problem. Jim Hiller, as the assistant, steps in and is now been named the full-time head coach. Um, throughout the remainder of the year after he was brought in, named the interim back in February, 21-12 and 1 record. So good percentage there, 618 winning percentage. The team was 17th in scoring, so kind of middle of the pack. You know, you look at the team; they kind of play a defensive style. They need a goaltender. We know that. Again, a little bit like a Travis Green, just kind of like, yeah, good hockey guy, knows his stuff. He has a relationship with the players, having been the assistant there. And listen, this guy has a track record. He coached his way up to the WHL, was an assistant in Detroit, in Toronto, worked on the Barry Trotz with the Islanders as well. So he's been around a bit. So he's certainly a veteran type of guy. Um, and just again, I think McClellan kind of got the short end of the stick there, and we'll see how it goes with LA. They obviously have some changes they need to make. They got to upgrade that goaltending, and but we'll see how Jim does. See how he does. Moving on to Seattle. And I may not pronounce his name correctly, but Dan Bleisma. Again, I apologize if I'm mispronouncing that name. Uh, Former head coach, both in Buffalo and Pittsburgh. Cup winning coach back in 2009. And before this rise up to Seattle, he had been coaching in Coachella Valley, AHL affiliate of the Kraken. But a 566 win percentage in his NHL coaching career, 320 wins, 190 losses, 55 overtime losses. Um, a little bit like LA, I didn't feel that Dave Haxtell deserved to be fired. Uh, got that team into the playoffs in year two. Not the best roster. They have a ways to go with the roster, but here we are. This is the new NHL. This is how it works today. This is how GMs and ownership works with their coaches. They um, quick trigger fingers with these guys. Uh, this is, of course, going to be Dan's third shot as head coach. He was a Jack Adams Award winner in 2010 and 11. That was a year when really kind of kept Pittsburgh in the hunt. If you remember, Sid and Malkin both struggled with injuries that year. Of course, that's the year that the Bruins end up winning the Stanley Cup. But he did a heck of a job keeping that team in the playoff picture. Uh, Fast forward, though, to his time in Buffalo. It didn't go so well. It really didn't go so well. Rumors swirling that he kind of was butting heads with some of the star players, Jack Eichel being one of them. That was very well documented and the time with Eichel's injuries and how the team was handling that. And um, so, after he gets fired in Buffalo, he hasn't coached in the NHL since 2017. So, been a minute, but had been successful in Coachella Valley. He's in the organization, so you understand if you're going to fire Hackstall, you kind of hire from within. And a guy who obviously a lot of success in the league prior to Stanley Cup winner, Jack Adams winner, his coach stars. And then one interesting note here is that he has already been talking about bringing in a female assistant coach to be part of his team, which I think is great. I think it's long overdue for the NHL to see this happen. You've seen it in other sports throughout, the NBA. You see it a little bit in football. I know you've definitely seen the minor league baseball. I can't now recall if you've seen it in Major League Baseball, but you've definitely seen it in the minors. long overdue, and good on Seattle if they can make that happen. We also have we're going to table San Jose. I have San Jose kind of up there on the board. They still have a vacancy. They're the one team right now that doesn't have a head coach. Um, Rumors right now that Marco Sturm is kind of the favorite for that position. He's been coaching the Ontario Reign in the AHL, LA Kings affiliate down there. Um, was a player in San Jose and was actually part of the Joe Thornton trade, and ended up in Boston during that time. So has a little bit of history there. Seems like he'd be a shoe in for that role, but that's again still the one job that's left out. And last on the board, we're going to talk about St. Louis Blues. Of course, we started talking with Craig Berube, got fired from St. Louis during the season. Drew Bannister, who was his assistant, gets the job as an interim and is now the full time head coach there in St. Louis. Interesting uh, way that they ended the season at 30, 19, and 5 under Bannister, 556 save. Keep saying save percentage, winning percentage. These coaches are not goalies, Ben. They're not goalies. They're coaches. Okay, got that figured out. Great. Uh, so he did play professionally in the States, but did spend a number of years playing in Europe. Was also a player coach in Britain, but coached his way through the OHL and the AHL. Did coach in Springfield, Mass, the old Portland Pirates. I remember up here before he joined the Blues as an assistant. This will be his first full time head coaching job in the NHL. You know, you know, talk is that he's more of a defensive style coach. St. Louis, they were 25th in the league in scoring last year, so there's some room for improvement on that side. But they played tough. I mean, they were in the playoff hunt. I know that Boston in the two games that they played against St. Louis, they had the overtime win in St. Louis. That was a little bit controversial. Pasta trip, no trip there in overtime. I was actually at the game in Boston when St. Louis came up. I took a client uh, to his first ever hockey game, and it was one of those like St. Louis just with 5 or 6 to 1 that night. Boston just chose not to bring their skates. I found myself throughout the game actually apologizing to my client, like, I'm really sorry. This is your first hockey game, and luckily he wasn't phased by it. He just enjoyed the time. So uh, but I think Madison would be a fine fit. Again, having been an assistant there, always nice to see someone getting that first opportunity to be a head coach. A different voice, different style than Berube. And again, Berube is one of those who've been there a while, successful, uh, time for a new voice. And I think that's why you saw that happen. Talk about how the league operates with their coaches. And this is a really scary stat. If you're looking for job security, don't become an NHL head coach. Don't do it. Don't do it. Um, this is one of those. I mentioned Boomer Gordon from the NHL Network Radio from the show The Point a couple videos ago. I'm going to mention him again tonight because this is something that he kind of tracks, and so I'm going to give Boomer credit again here tonight. Um, but can you guess who is the fifth most tenured coach currently today? Take a guess. Martin St. Louis in Montreal. The fifth most tenured coach was hired February 2022. He has the fifth most tenure in the league. This is crazy land. That's crazy land. I don't get it. I don't understand why teams still continue to do this to their coaches. It's one thing to need a new voice after 6 or 7 years, but some of these trigger fingers are really really quick. Um, So anyway, just a fun stat of the day. And again, thank you, Boomer, for tracking that all year. It's always a fun part of his show when he wants to bring that up. Uh, yeah, gonna just kind of end with just going through a few of the names that are still out there, though. Talked about Tom McClellan earlier, former coach the LA Kings. He's got a 523 winning percentage though between San Jose, Edmonton, and LA. 598 wins. That's his career. Um, Dave Hackstall there from Seattle had also coached in Philadelphia. Jay Woodcroft, we all remember, fired there in Edmonton after his first attempt as a head coach. 594 win percentage all those years there in Edmonton. David Quinn's another name, another one that he gets fired there in San Jose this year. I don't know what ownership expected. It was an awful team. Uh, Never any expectations of winning, but they move on from him. He actually just today, or I think it's today or yesterday, was named an assistant in Pittsburgh. So good on him, back on a bench there with Sullivan. I think that's is that an all BU coaching staff now. So good on Quinn. And then there's a few other names, older coaches, more veteran coaches that you kind of wonder, are these guys sunsetting? Are they done? But you got some big time hitters that are still out there, and they're just names to keep in mind as you get back into the season. We know that again, these ownership groups are not going to change. They're going to get 12, 13, 14 games into the year. If things aren't going well, they're going to fire more coaches. There'll be more firings. And these are some names to kind of keep in mind. Again, uh, could be great fill-ins halfway through a year, but we got Bruce Boudreau, uh, Jack Adams winner, but a 568 win percentage between Washington, Anaheim, Minnesota, and Vancouver. 617 wins in his career. Daryl Sutter, um, excuse me, 737 wins in his career. He's won two Stanley Cups, of course, those years in LA. Jack Adams Award winner as well. He may be done. I mean, his ending there in Calgary, he definitely looked like the grumpy old man, get off my lawn type of guy. I'm not sure if that works anymore in the NHL. A name we'll all know here in Boston, Claude Julien, 667 career wins, 524 winning percentage, of course, the Stanley Cup, and 11, and a Jack Adams Award winner. And maybe the most interesting name on this list is Joel Quenneville. Joel Quenneville, three-time Stanley Cup winner, one Jack Adams Award, has 969 career victories. Uh, Story out of Chicago there a couple years ago. He was actually coaching in Florida. We all remember that, and was fired. Um, Scandal out of Chicago, all sorts of bad and nasty things. Joel gets caught up into that. I'm not going to get into that whole story. Google it, look it up if you want to learn more about it. He has applied for reinstatement, and Gary Bettman did address this during his kind of state of the state a couple days ago before the Cup final started. That uh, the application is in and it is under consideration, but no decision has yet been made. As soon as Quenneville is available, uh, he's going to get work. This guy is one heck of a coach. And I personally, again, not knowing all the details of what happened in Chicago, just as a hockey fan, I would love to see Quenneville get another opportunity in the league. So we will see what happens. So yeah, crazy land of the coaching carousel in the NHL. I hope that you guys have found this somewhat entertaining and enjoyable tonight. Thank you guys so much for your support. Please don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. Still trying to get to that 100 subscribers here on YouTube, and hope you guys enjoy the hockey tomorrow. And we will talk to you all again soon. Thank you.